I'm Liz Loza, and this is Facts versus Feelings, your amuse-bouche to your fantasy focus main course. We're bringing more fantasy, more facts, more feelings, and of course, more fun. And now that I have your attention, today's feeling is that space between conviction and delusion. Hi, producer Presley.
Hi, Liz. Week 5. We made it.
It's only week 5. What do you mean we made it? It's October 1st as of today. We're best month of the year, by the way, October. We've got playoff baseball. It's my birthday month. We also have enough actionable fantasy data to make some really clear choices. What's not to love?
I agree. And congratulations, Chicago Cubs.
I know. I see that you're wearing your Chicago Cubs hat. Even though it's backwards, I know that that's your Cubs hat.
Yeah, it is. It is. We won't tell everybody what we got up to in Chicago, but it was a great time. I'm now officially a Cubs fan.
Also, shout out to my Dodgers, my other team, who almost gave it away in the 8th inning, but managed to beat the Reds handily. I am really, I just want to put this out here. I am really wanting to manifest a Cubs-Dodgers NLCS. Let's make that happen. And then, my bank account will be emptied because I will be at one of those games.
Well, we are not a baseball podcast here. We're a fantasy football podcast. So remember, like the video, subscribe to the NFL on ESPN YouTube channel. And should we hit a disclaimer?
No, because we should also remind everyone that they can leave us a voicemail. Oh, who's the producer now?
So
hit us with your questions at 914-348-1893. Now, David, you can hit that disclaimer.
Fantasy football is a game of inches, luck, and irrational confidence. Proceed with caution, trust your gut, and remember, side effects of listening to this podcast may include spontaneous victory dances, mild trash talking, and a belief that your sleeper pick is better than everyone else's. Take the facts of fantasy football seriously, but consult your feelings before making any lineup changes.
I am Beyonce always.
Not this time.
Yes, I am.
All right, Liz, it's week 5, and we are welcoming everybody into Conviction Corner. The first player on this list, the organization was definitely convicted when they decided to build the team around him, and that is the New England Patriots' Drake Maye. Should fantasy managers be as convicted? That's the question.
Well, Dave, he is currently fantasy's QB4 overall. He's averaging over 21 fantasy points per game behind only Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. So I think managers are feeling pretty good about this pick, particularly where they were able to draft him heading into the fall. Maye is getting it done through the air and on the ground. He is, if we're talking about his passing acumen, leading the league in completion percentage, and he has also managed at least 45 rushing yards or a rushing score in 3 straight games. Here's a fun fact. I love this stat. Maye has managed 988 passing yards and 98 rushing yards so far this season. 0 other players have done that many of both passing and rushing. Right now, I think we're really enjoying the come up. He is following through on so many of the promises, and I like this matchup for him because I think he's going to use his legs quite a bit against the Bills, who are allowing a yards per carry average of 6.0 to opposing rushers. Now, also, we're going to have to see Maye use his arm because the Patriots are 7.5-point road dogs at Orchard Park. So it will be a tall order, but remember, points do not have to be pretty for them to help fantasy managers win. I have Maye ranked as my QB7 heading into week 5.
I am loving the sound of that because as somebody that manages Stephon Diggs and they kind of connected last week, I'm hoping for more of those numbers. But a wide receiver that has not connected with the quarterback recently is A.J. Brown. And my conviction on A.J. Brown rest of season, let alone next week, is in the toilet. What have you got?
Well, I don't think we were delusional because the talent with A.J. Brown is certainly there. We have seen him perform and produce. However, there might have been some clues that this boom-bust production was possible. If you look at his stats from technically the top of 2025, which was last season's postseason for the Eagles, Brown has recorded fewer than 3 catches and 15 yards in 4 of his last 8 games. Now, in fantasy, we don't like to look at the regular season postseason because ours is differently paced, but it does fill out and illuminate a larger picture. Part of this issue is that Philly likes to play really conservatively when they're winning, and right now they have yet to lose a game. So it also doesn't figure to be a philosophy that's going to shift. Additionally, Jalen Hurts' accuracy from a passing perspective has waned a little bit. He's managing a completion percentage just above 69%. Now, that's not bad, but when you look at his targets to A.J. Brown in week 4, it is a bit concerning because while Brown did record and draw 9 looks, 5 of those were thrown, quote, off target by Jalen Hurts. Now, that could be a chemistry issue. That could just be the day that it was. But again, these two are not completely in sync, and I think it's going to be more difficult for them to be in sync in week 5, given the matchup against the Broncos' suffocating defense. Denver has allowed just 2 passing scores on the season and just 1 touchdown to a wide receiver. It was Keenan Allen, actually, back in week 3. So given the style of play, given the chemistry issues, which could change, and given the matchup, I have A.J. Brown ranked just inside of my top 20 players at the position in week 5.
Well, this next player on this list, Liz, is a personal conundrum of mine because I have him rostered in a lot of leagues. I stashed him on a lot of benches, and that is Zach Charbonnet. After week 1, I was convicted that he was going to take over this backfield, and weeks 2 through 4, it has not been the case, so please help me out.
Well, I don't think based on the facts, you're going to like what I have to say, because my feeling is that we need to hit pause on these Wally Pipp narratives. I think that Zach Charbonnet is a very trusted 1B, but I do not anticipate, unless there is an injury, unfortunately, to Kenneth Walker, him becoming the team's 1A. If you look at the data in week 4, when Charbonnet returned from that foot injury, Walker managed 52% of the snaps. Charbonnet, 45% of the snaps. Now, Charbs did run 12 routes to Walker's 9, but Walker outcarried Charbonnet by 7 totes. That's a pretty large margin, which leads me to believe that unless there is an injury to Kenneth Walker, he is going to remain the team's trusted 1A option. He offers more upside and more boom every time he touches the ball, and Charbonnet is a little bit touchdown dependent in these situations. Building on that, though, as we head into week 5, I do not like this matchup for either running back versus Tampa Bay. Remember, in week 4, the Bucs held Saquon Barkley to just 43 rushing yards on 19 attempts. In fact, the Bucs have allowed the second lowest YPC, an average of just 3.3 yards per carry, to opposing rushers all season. So given the matchup and given this timeshare, I have Kenneth Walker ranked as my RB19 and Zach Charbonnet ranked as my RB29 heading into week 5.
Well,
This is a safe place. It's a place where we can feel free sharing our feelings.
Now it's time to get comfy on the couch and dive into fantasy therapy, the safe space for all of your fantasy football questions. Dave has some voicemails.
I do have some voicemails. First off, thank you everybody for dialing in. Make sure you keep those phone calls coming. We're here for all your fantasy therapy. This first one is a voicemail from Michael from New York.
Good morning, Liz. Mike here from New York. Longtime football fan. I have Lad McConkey. Can I start him at all this year, or should I just get rid of him entirely? I want to start him just like Tyrell McMillan, but I can't. Can I? Little help. Thanks. Love the show.
Well, thank you for calling in, Mike. And I want to tell you that you're obviously not alone. There are plenty of people, like we talked about last week, who drafted Lad and are similarly frustrated. Right now, he's fantasy's wide receiver 54 overall. He hasn't managed double-digit fantasy points since week 1. No, I'm not trying to rub salt into the wound. You probably know all of this, but we got to go through it because he's coming off of a game in which he converted just 1 of 6 targets for 11 yards. Those 6 targets, by the way, ranked 3rd on the team behind Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen. This is a pattern that we are seeing every single week. And that was in a game in which the Chargers were losing and needed to throw more. Now, I do think Justin Herbert will bounce back this week against Washington because the Commanders can't really generate much pressure. But the volume is still a concern. If the Chargers aren't going to be throwing a bunch and Ladd remains third on the team in looks, he's not going to get enough opportunities to produce the way you want him to. So that makes him maybe a flex this particular week because we have 4 teams on bye. Now, I don't want to end on a sour note, so I will say congratulations for drafting Tet McMillan. He currently ranks in opposition to Ladd McConkey, 5th at the position in targets with 35 on the season, and he is my wide receiver 15 heading into week 5.
Up next, Liz, you're not going to believe it. It's another guy named Michael, just not from New York. Same
love a
person,
Michael.
same name, different person.
Hey, this is Michael. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm
love
calling
Nashville.
because I'm hitting the panic button on Alvin tomorrow, and I just need suggestions on what to do with him. The Saints are going down, and it don't look any better.
Yeah, the Saints are going down, but Kamara has been a part of an inefficient offense for so long. Yet, I think at 30 years old, the wheels might be falling off of this wagon. Kamara is currently Fantasy's RB26 overall. He's only cleared 15 fantasy points in one game all season. This, to me, is the flashing buzzer. It was super concerning to see Kendre Miller so involved last week at Buffalo. And the good news is that Kamara continues to outsnap Miller by a pretty wide margin, and Miller hasn't been utilized in the passing game. He has just 3 targets on the season compared to Kamara's 15. And obviously, Kamara's utilization in the passing game has always buoyed his fantasy stock. I know it's been tough sledding, but the matchup this week does offer a little bit of relief, a respite perhaps. The Giants have allowed 6.1 yards per carry to opposing rushers. Last week, Omarion Hampton absolutely smoked Big Blue. He got him for 128 on the ground while also, and this is key because of Kamara's utilization in the passing game, Hampton was able to convert all 5 of his looks for another 37 receiving yards. So I would say you can be patient for one more week. I think Kamara can finish inside the top 15 to 18 fantasy running backs by the end of the week.
Kendre Miller, though, I stashed him, Liz. We'll see
Good
what
stash,
happens
good
there.
stash, baby. Good
Yeah.
job.
This next one, we're going to
Gold
social
star for
media
you.
for this one. Oh, thank you. We're going for social media for this one, and you're going to like it. This is from Jim,
Okay.
and he says, has Genty arrived?
Girl, it sure was
I knew
good
you'd like
to
it.
see him in that upright stance once again, being the king that we know he should be. Listen, I told you, given the talent and given the volume, patience was key with Genty. The matchup obviously helped. He's not going to get the Bears every single week, but the Colts, who he does have this week, can be had via the ground. India's allowing a YPC of 4.5. They've also allowed 3 runs of 20 or more yards so far this season. And they rank, I love this stat. It worked out well for me last week, 25th in run-stop win rate. Genty is my confident RB15. Let's hope for even a little bit better than that in week 5.
Hey, I'm just happy for you, Liz. I'm just happy for you. We have another question, final question, and we're going to throw it back to week 4 on this one. And it comes from Scott, and he says, can we not have ties in the NFL? By the way, go Cubs.
Go Cubs. Yes. So I agree with you, Scott. I, too, would prefer not to have ties. It gives such a womp womp unfinished feeling to the end of a game. But you know what? My fellow Chicago sports fan, the Bears did something that the Packers couldn't do, and that was beat the Cowboys. So yeah, I'll take a tie. This week, we're joined by one of the most trusted voices in fantasy. It's Mr. Jamey Eisenberg. As CBS Sports senior fantasy analyst and writer, he has been grinding the beat for almost 2 decades. Whether it's dissecting data or trusting instincts, Jamey definitely knows how to balance the facts and the feelings, making him the perfect guest for this show. Jamey, welcome.
Thanks for having me. That's a great intro. Makes me feel a little old, but I appreciate that. But it's always great to talk to you, Liz, and I'm excited to be here.
It's been a minute. I don't think I've seen you in person, actually, since we were both at the Super Bowl in Miami when the Chiefs bested the 49ers back in February of 2020.
That is a great memory. Yes, I think, were we in Vegas at one point together, too, for one of the conventions at some point? But the Super Bowl might have been after.
I think the Super Bowl was after. You made that much of an impression. I'll never forget it. Actually, true story. I was feeling pretty good about my career at that point, but still pretty young in my career. And it was 5 years ago, right? And you and Dave Richards asked me out for drinks, and I'd never felt cooler in my whole life. I don't think I ended up going because I had to work, not because I didn't want to. But you asked me out for drinks, and I was like, oh my God, have I arrived? I'm going to have a cocktail with Jamey Eisenberg.
I mean, the pleasure would have been all ours, obviously. But listen, you've done a great job.
I'm sorry to embarrass you and make you stumble now. Just kidding.
You've done a great job, obviously, in where you are, and it's just been fun to watch the rapid ascension of your career, and keep going.
Wow. Thank you, Jamey. That's so kind. Well, you are always very, very helpful and one of the most, like I said, trusted voices. I've always loved your work and respected it. So I'm very honored that you would come on my little digital and audio show and be a part of it. So to that end, would you like to start things off with a game?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is a game called Start, Bench, Cut. I figured since you're such a decorated expert, you'll be able to handle it in a rapid fire fashion. I'm going to give you a player and you will tell me whether you want to start, bench, or cut that player specifically in week 5. Understood?
As long as it's not a Cardinals running back, I'm good to go.
Right, I know we're all a little triggered right now. Trey Benson. Starting with Ladd McConkey. He's facing the Commanders.
I'm going to start Ladd with the hope that this is the week he gets going.
Interesting. DJ Moore's on a bye, so this isn't week 5 specific, but thinking rest of season.
I'm going to bench DJ Moore. Rome Odunze is clearly the number one guy there, and he and Caleb Williams are not on the same page right now.
I agree with you. Rome Alpha is going to Alpha. Also, I know I said rapid fire, but DJ Moore might be a trade candidate. I could see him moving to another squad before the deadline, so just keep an eye on that. I wouldn't cut him, but I would bench him for that purpose. Kyler Murray, obviously without either James Conner or Trey Benson in week 5.
I'm going to start him. Titans defense, not one to fear, and this could be his best game of the season.
Trevor Lawrence.
I'm going to bench him. No, I'm going to cut him. It's time to move on from Trevor Lawrence. This is actually interesting, not to be slow.
Go for it.
But he's been terrible in their wins, and he was great in their loss. So if they lose, which they probably will, he might have a good game. But still, it's time to move on from Trevor Lawrence.
Also, Jacksonville defense really standing up, leading the league at least for the first 3 weeks in takeaways, has definitely improved. And I think that the whole team is going to be leaning on that side of the ball instead of their quarterback, who has not, I agree with you, shown he could fulfill his potential or his perceived potential. Ramondre Stevenson at Buffalo on Sunday night.
I'm going to bench him. Bills defense still really good, and we still have too much of a split between not just Trevion Henderson, Stevenson, but also Antonio Gibson. So I want to roster Stevenson, but not start him.
Nick Chubb.
Such a great matchup, but I think it's time to cut Nick Chubb. The Woody Marks era is here.
Talk about ascending players. Woody Marks is it. I agree. Also has some value in the passing game. TJ Hawkinson, he got going in week 3 and then another dud in week 4 against an exploitable Pittsburgh Steelers defense. What are we thinking at Cleveland? Still across the pond, this time in the UK. Or this time in England, I should say, because I think technically Ireland's the UK. I'm not sure. We'll check that.
So if you don't need TJ Hawkinson, you cut him because their bye is next week. But you can bench him just because I still want to see what it looks like when McCarthy's the quarterback.
Brock Bowers, a different tight end, performing better than Hawkinson, but certainly not up to where people had hoped he would be.
Yeah, you're starting Bowers and buy low on Bowers because I hope that as his knee gets better and hopefully Geno Smith gets better, better numbers are ahead.
I agree. That is the game. Thank you for playing Start, Bench, and Cut.
What
now
I win?
We're going to... what do you win? Another segment with me.
Let's go.
All right. We're going to shift gears towards some in the trenches fantasy talk now. I want to hear about you as a league manager, though, because, we have this job, but we also have our leagues that hopefully we're still passionate about. I want to know if there's a person on a particular team that you have to beat every single week or season.
It is without question our podcast host, Adam Azer. Great guy.
Okay.
just an unbelievable fantasy analyst and fantasy podcast host, and still does some TV hosting as well. But it's just so much fun to watch him squirm and get upset and get frustrated. And listen, he's beaten me plenty of times. We've been doing this together for a long time, so we play in a lot of leagues together, and he's had his fair share of victories. But right now, he still owes me a bet where I forget the players that it was, but I won the bet, and he's supposed to, in his background, which has been the same for about the last 10 years, he's supposed to put a picture of me behind him, and he's yet to do that. So it's on me for not sending him the picture, so I take responsibility for that. But anytime I could beat Adam Azer, it is a thrill, a joy, and one of the best victories in life. Who's that person for you?
Who's that person for me? I'm just so used to beating everyone that I don't really have someone that stands out. I just win so regularly. I guess I wouldn't mind beating like Mike Clay from time to time. That feels pretty good if I'm being honest, but I don't think I'm that person for Mike. So, it's the way that like the Bears have a rivalry with the Green Bay Packers, but the Packers have owned us for so long that it doesn't exist both ways.
Makes sense.
But thank you for asking. So you talked about wanting to make Adam squirm. I want to know which player has caused you personally so much agita this season.
It's got to be Brian Thomas Jr. Just so frustrating right now through the first 4 weeks of the season. The disconnect with Trevor Lawrence, I hate the narrative of, it was Mac Jones that made Brian Thomas Jr. Successful. I mean, come on. He's just there's something. But do you think
there's some truth to it though? Because the chemistry is not there. Like they are not a Sabrina Carpenter song.
I think there's probably 10%, 20% of that, maybe at most, of Mac Jones being one of those quarterbacks that, has nothing to lose at that point of his career, where he was last year of just, I'm going to throw some YOLO balls to my best receiver and just hope he makes plays. And that was the case. It's a new offense, new personnel around him too, so when he was doing that last year, it was without Evan Ingram, without Christian Kirk, now there's Travis Hunter and this whole what side of the ball is going to play on, and how much is he taking away some opportunities. It seems as if Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence like Parker Washington and Brenton Strange maybe a little bit too much for what Brian Thomas needs. And you mentioned it, the defense has been great, the run game has been great. Travis Etienne is off to a great start as well. So a lot of things just working at player, but the bigger thing is when you watch Brian Thomas play, you're seeing bad routes. You're seeing afraid to go over the middle at times. You're seeing, drops, obviously. And for what the talent level is, and then, just for your question, of causing me, and I'm sure many fantasy analysts, agita, great word, that we hyped him up, and then when you hype somebody up and you see the struggles, it's like, I feel bad for, him. I feel bad for the advice that, giving, to that he should perform at this level, and, hopefully he turns things around.
I agree. That's a really astute analysis, as is expected from someone as bright as you are. Did you personally draft BTJ places?
Well, yeah, of course.
Right, because we take our own advice, which I think people need to be aware of. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have 3 boys. They all play in fantasy leagues. We do father-son leagues together. Oh. And my oldest one, so this is now, he's 13, so this is now year 6 maybe of us doing this league together, and the idea was to turn it over to them, the boys, and let them run it themselves. This is the first year that the parents completely absolved ourselves from helping. They did have lifelines that they used. Some of the other kids used me as their lifeline, which was funny. But he drafted Brian Thomas as his number 1 receiver, early round 2. And, I get home every day, and thanks, Dad, for BTJ. So it's you never want to see those type of things happen, when you give those type of suggestions.
Yeah, you're getting it from everywhere, all places. Is there a player, and let's not say one that you hyped up, but one that you have rostered personally, that you feel like has to bounce back in week 5? Otherwise, you're officially through. He's going off into the waiver wire abyss.
I would have said Braylon Allen because he was one of my favorite late round picks. Unfortunately, got hurt in the game Monday night, and now who knows when he'll return? But going on IR. Probably it's Jalen Waddle, to be honest with you. Because there's a huge opportunity here with Tyreek Hill out, and his numbers typically have been good, whether Tyreek has missed time when Tyreek wasn't on the field with him in the early part of his career before he joined the Dolphins, the last couple of years when Devon Achane has been banged up, that he's been a superstar. And now is his chance to be a superstar. And not that obviously, I know the question is get rid of him. I'm not dropping or cutting Jalen Waddle, but I don't know about you. I drafted Waddle with the chance of something happening to Tyreek. We know there was some off-field stuff going on with him. We know that there was some, concerns with the team, the quarterback, everybody, not happy with how last year finished. So could Tyreek be traded? Could Tyreek be, suspended? So Jalen Waddle was somebody that with the potential of getting a featured opportunity, you never want to see it come as a result of injury like this, but now here we are. And so it's step up time for Jalen Waddle, and hopefully he delivers. I'm confident that he will, but it's something that I certainly want to see, especially in a great matchup against Carolina.
So, we obviously love when people continue playing, even if their record isn't the best. And there's always an opportunity to turn it around. Nothing is ever lost, especially only 4 or 5 weeks into the season. So what advice would you give managers that are maybe 1-3 or even 0-4 right now?
So trading is your best friend, and I think you turn, if you have superstar caliber players and have 2 or 3 holes on your roster, can you turn that superstar into 1 or 2 players? We had this conversation on our Fantasy Football Today podcast on what day is it? Wednesday, about trading Christian McCaffrey, for example. So Adam Mazer, our host, he just lost. It's a 14-team league, so he lost Tyreek Hill and James Conner over the last couple of weeks, and he has McCaffrey. And so he said he's going to make some offers of McCaffrey for 2 quality starters. And so the question is, what are 2 quality starters? You're not going to get 2 superstars for McCaffrey, but can you get, let's say, a top 12 running back, top 12 wide receiver, or top 15 of one of those 2 positions? But I think it has to be 2 must-start players. So, when you look at your roster, you try to evaluate and say, okay, what can get me to either my injured players coming back? What can get me back on track? So at least I have a chance to have some fun, because obviously this is a game about fun. When your season ends in week 5, like you said, you're 1-3, you don't want to be 1-4 or certainly 0-5. You try and do whatever you can. So I would look at, first off, do I have a player that's hurt that may be of help to somebody that's 5-0, 4-0, 3-1, and they could use that player down the road? CeeDee Lamb, for example, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, any of these guys that still have the chance to be special down the end of the season. Rashee Rice, who's not back until week 7. And can you turn that into somebody that can help you right now? So you clearly have to try and get lucky with a Sean Tucker, Michael Carter, Amari DiMercado, these guys that may have some chances to play in week 5. But if you can make some trades and turn one of your stars, especially somebody that's injured, into something that can help you, be aggressive with it, because again, this is about having fun, and you want it to be a general manager for a reason.
I love that advice. Shake it up, change the energy, because you don't want to be married to misery for the rest of the 17 weeks, like this, it might not work, but also what you're doing isn't working and is certainly going to fail. So pull the ripcord and at least change the energy, take a pivot. I love that advice. I have a similar situation, so I appreciate the confirmation personally. All right, so this week's episode is about the space between conviction and delusion. So I will ask you which player you are particularly convicted will perform well in week 5, and which player you think fantasy managers are remaining delusional about in week 5.
It's a great question. Kyler Murray stands out. You asked about him earlier, and this is somebody that, you at least for me, I thought this would be a good year for him, because he says he wanted to run more, and he's been, over 30 yards rushing in every game so far this season. So that's been there. 2 games ago, I forget who they played, but the Rams maybe, where he had the drops. Marvin Harrison had the drops, and struggled with that part of his game. That would have been a better performance for him. We know there's been some disconnect with Marvin Harrison. Like, this is the perfect opportunity for him to step up in a great matchup without his running game there to support him. Not that that's been great at all so far, but this is one of those games where I know with 4 teams on a bye, no Lamar Jackson, quarterbacks are certainly been struggling so far. Thankfully, we're getting Jane Daniels back, but the opportunity for people that have Kyler Murray, and in some cases are ready to drop Kyler Murray, I know you asked that question, which is relevant. This is the time for him to step up and hopefully deliver.
So the second player is someone that you don't think will perform well in week 5, but fantasy managers remain delusional about.
Probably I don't know if Jordan Mason qualifies for this.
Sure, I'll take it. That's an interesting name. Yeah.
I just look at, last week was very frustrating because the Steelers defense had been so poor. And now you're taking on a Browns team that has just been absolutely dominant against the run. And so I think sometimes we get stuck on this, like, again, just to reference our show, we were talking about, would you trade Jordan Mason in part of a package, obviously, but like, would you trade Jordan Mason for Brian Thomas? Would you trade Jordan Mason for A.J. Brown, for those type of things? You're not going to get those type of things straight up, but, look, he's got the starting job for at least 2 more games. He's maybe going to be the best running back for the Vikings rest of the season. I drafted him with the chance of this happening. I'm sure you probably, did as well and told people to. But great game in week 1 against Cincinnati. Everybody expected that. Difficult game against Pittsburgh. Nobody expected that. You can't start him against Cleveland. Like, he's just tailor-made for what the Browns want to do, is just a guy that's not going to catch passes and just run into the middle of that defense behind a beat-up offensive line right now. So I'm stuck in a couple situations where there's nobody better to start, and the hope that he falls into the end zone is still there. But this could be a really bad day for Jordan Mason and that entire Vikings offense based on just how the Browns defense has performed.
Well, expectation management is so key in fantasy. You, of course, have exceeded all of our expectations every time you step up to the mic, whether it's on your podcast or you're doing TV or coming on a show like mine. So thank you so much, Jamey, for joining me. Can you tell everyone where they can find your work and follow everything that it is that you do?
Well, Liz, first off, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. You can find me on our Fantasy Football Today podcast, which is available wherever podcasts are found. We're on YouTube as well. So if you want to just see our beautiful faces, you can check us out there. And then all of my written stuff is on cbssports.com, as you alluded to, for decades now. So I appreciate everybody that follows us and certainly listens to all of us in the industry and, continues to follow you as well, because you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you, Jamey. I appreciate you for coming on and for being such a bright light in this industry. You're an inspiration. And, I hope you get your Tyreek Hill and Brian Thomas Jr. situations figured out.
Last call.
Today we learned that October is the best month of the year, that Brian Thomas Jr. is wreaking havoc everywhere, including the Eisenberg household, and that while both conviction and delusion are feelings, only one is built on facts. Remember, conviction is born out of the research we do, and while the work we put in never guarantees victory, it is ultimately better to lose with conviction than be led by delusion. Big thanks to Jamey Eisenberg for joining the show and playing along, and as always to producer Dave for doing producer Dave-like things. Be sure to check out my Week 5 edition of Facts vs. Feelings, the column, which is currently live on the .com. And remember, you can leave us a voicemail. Do that at 914-348-1893. Until next time, may your facts be solid, your feelings be right, and your bus be someone else's problem.
Hi, I'm Liz Loza, and this is Facts vs. Feelings.
We should start it like that one week. I don't really understand.
Your palm.
Like that? That was horrible. I have little hands. What do you want from me? I'm not a big person.